Two extremely interesting reports have come out about the Raptors at the start of their offseason. First of all, the front office has been reported as upset with Nick Nurse's comments about his future, and another report suggests that the front office is prepared to make significant changes to the team in the offseason, and perhaps these two reports are correlated. Let's get into it. If you don't already know, this is Amateur Hour TV. It's the second channel in the Amateur Hour Production Network, and on this channel, I go through additional Raptors-related content and videos just like this in a whole other style to my main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, with nearly 14,000 subscribers over there. Raptors content consistently there, but over here, just having a little bit of extra fun talking ball and talking Raps. So let's get into the stories that have come out today, maybe last night / today, but two very interesting stories, as I mentioned earlier. Let's get right into it. First of all, front office. Apparently, they're unhappy with Nick Nurse's comments. These are the comments that he made before the game against the Philadelphia 76ers, where Nick Nurse said he's going to take some time in the offseason to reflect on his time in Toronto. He's been in Toronto for 10 years now. He's going to reflect. He's got 1 year left on his contract, and this put everybody in uproar. Nurse, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the comments Nurse has made at this point. Nurse was very ambiguous about what his future holds. He didn't commit to the Raptors, definitely didn't commit to the Raptors, but also didn't commit to leaving the Raptors either. Left himself really in the middle. But with all the words, like he was floating around some pretty strange words, talk about how long he's been here, talk about reflecting on his time here, talking about just needing time to go over everything. It kind of gave Raptors fans the impression that Nurse was on his way out. And it gave fans across the league and analysts across the league the impression that Nurse wanted out and that Nurse's days were numbered. I feel like I'm in the very extreme minority of people that didn't really care much about what Nick Nurse said here. The reality is this is a guy that is in the final year of, or about to enter the final year of his contract. He's going to be looking for an extension this summer. I'm sure he's seen all the noise about him potentially getting fired. So here's a guy keeping all of his options open. Now, the best way to answer the question about his future and everything, he could have just shut it down and said, I'm just focused on the rest of the season. I'm focused on getting this team to the playoffs. And though he did say that, in the long response to the question, Nurse said he's focused on getting to the playoffs. It didn't happen, but he's focused on the rest of the season. But maybe that just should have been it. Ultimately, maybe he kind of went a little bit too long with his response, leaving it a little bit too open-ended. But ultimately, like I said, 1 year left on his contract, looking for an extension. It's just what a player would do. If a player is heading into the last year of their contract, they're not going to say, I want to be here. I want to stay here, because, well, then their contract value decreases, because your extension likely from that team is going to be like, well, you want to stay here anyway. We don't need to overpay you. But if you leave it open-ended, like, we'll see what happens, then all of a sudden you kind of start a bidding war for yourself. So that's the way I kind of thought Nick Nurse was approaching it. The reality is he's looking out for a paycheck here. Like, this is their job after all. So I didn't really mind it. And there's been like way too much speculation going around the league right now. Way too much for my opinion. Again, I feel like I'm in the minority with this one, but Nick Nurse seems a little bit fed up with what's going on as well. He was asked about it in his exit press conference today, season-ending press conference, and I'm not going to play this whole clip, but he was asked about if he thought that it backfired the way he said it. And he said straight up, no. Do you think that approach backfired? No. And then somebody asked, because it kind of opened the door to all these questions, and Nurse replied, I did, or you guys did. And that's the way I see it. Like I just said, I feel like people are taking this extraordinarily far. I don't see this nearly as big of a problem as some other people are seeing it. I mean, for the amount of people that want Nick Nurse gone, I mean, I don't know why people are so up in arms about this. I guess the biggest thing is that they felt like near the end of the season, it cost the Raptors some wins, and it kind of ruined the mojo within the locker room, per se. Again, I don't really see that. I kind of saw the same Raptors team I saw all throughout the season, where we questioned motivation, we questioned effort, questioned desired. These last few games didn't feel like they were any different, and I wouldn't put that on Nurse with these comments. Also, the added fact that like every player in their season-ending media availability talked about how much they love Nick Nurse as a coach. So I feel like it's a bit of a reach saying that Nurse's comments were the reason the Raptors were like the 9 seed instead of the 8 seed. Like the whole season was a disaster. The Raptors actually ended the season quite well relative to where they started. Like they certainly improved after the trade deadline. You'd hope so. After trading away a first-round pick in order to still lose in the play-in tournament, they did improve. Maybe too much and too little at the exact same time. Too much for the lottery, too little for the playoffs. But that's the way it is. And I don't think these comments were the reason all of this went down. So that is where I have some confusion with the way people are treating this. But speculation continues here as the Toronto Raptors, according to Sean Devaney, I don't know who this is, but apparently the Raptors are expected to make significant changes in the offseason. Now, these are the type of reports, and you know what? I didn't dig deep on this. I just looked at the NBA Central here, the way they're reporting it. Like, okay, the team that traded a first-round pick at the deadline just to still miss the playoffs that everybody's been wondering about for like at least a year and a half now, about what their direction is going to be, what they're going to do. The expectation, is the expectation they're going to make changes? Is that the expectation? Significant changes are going to happen? First of all, for people seeing this, maybe for the first time, the Raptors are expected to make significant changes. Significant, quotation, significant to you may not be what significant is to Masai Ujiri. Significant is a very broad term. Significant could be, hey, we added in 2 pieces to our bench. Significant could be we traded Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. So significant has a very broad term. And also the Raptors were expected to make significant changes at the trade deadline. That didn't really materialize. I mean, obviously trading a first and getting Pirtle, that's quite significant. But the term significant would imply like wholesale sort of changes. At least that's the way that I perceive it. And I just don't really perceive those wholesale changes happening here. I spoke about it in yesterday's video on my main channel, Amateur Sports. I strongly encourage you to go check that out. I think I'm going to toot my own horn. That was a great video. You should go check it out on my main channel. To put it into a little bit of a Cliff Notes version here, Raptors have very little flexibility on trading draft picks until 2028. They cannot trade a draft pick until the 2028 pick or until after they have made their selection in this year's draft. But like, we need that player. The team needs help and needs depth. We need the player that we're going to draft to be on the team and be helpful from day one. So, I mean, could happen. I'm just saying. Can't trade picks until 2028. It's a long time away. 3 key free agents in VanVleet, Gary Trent, Jakob Poeltl. We have all their bird rights. I'm expecting the Raptors to try and bring them back to the team. Siakam, I really doubt they give up on him. OG Anunoby, 1 year left on his contract. I mean, we'll see. Maybe a trade happens, maybe a trade doesn't. But the wholesale, like, significant changes, I just can't really see that happening for the team. As far as the coaching, and this is where maybe we have a little bit of correlation on these two stories, is a significant change bringing in a new coach? Is that promoting a coach from within, firing Nick Nurse and getting a new head coach? I listened to I watched a video with Bobby Marks, ESPN analyst today, and I think he kind of enlightened me a little bit on the Nick Nurse situation. Not enlightened me, but gave me a new perspective here where I'm like, Nick Nurse is a great coach, 1 year left on his contract. Like, I'm upset with this season. I'm extremely upset with that playing game. Like, how do you blow a lead like that? And just so many times in the clutch, his schematics let the team down. His lack of adjustments in that game in particular let us down. So I wouldn't mind a coaching change, but I also know Nick Nurse is a good coach. I wouldn't mind keeping him, but keeping him on thin ice and having that, okay, if things don't go well, then you want to replace him. But Bobby Marks on ESPN gave a good perspective in saying, like, why wait and see? Because if it's still going poorly, then you just have to restart this entire process of finding a new coach. Right now, you're in the offseason. You have all this time to find a new coach, to tailor make a roster for this new coach, to prepare under this new coach, instead of having to kind of juggle all of these things in the middle of the season if things don't go well. So start that process now. Start the process of retooling this team now. And that pushed me a little bit over on the side of, okay, maybe it is time to move on from Nick Nurse. And he also used the terminology that every coach has an expiration date, unless you're like a Spoelstra or a Popovich, some of the unicorns, if you will, of the coaching landscape in the NBA. But eventually, like, your time runs out. Eventually, things go stale, and it's just good to shake things up. It doesn't mean that you don't think it's good. It just means that it's time to shake things up and it's time to start maybe something new. So that's a perspective that I appreciated a little bit. But as far as Nurse, the comments, like, again, it's the news running with these things. Could Nurse have done a better job to not leave it as open-ended? Sure. But, I mean, it's not his responsibility to, I suppose, make sure the media doesn't run with certain things. Was it his intention to do this? Maybe. I don't think so. But, you know, we could have seen Nick Nurse's last game in Toronto. And as far as these significant changes go, yeah, Masai, I'll believe it when I see it, pal. Significant changes. And we'll see exactly what happens. The next few days, we should have some media availability from Masai and Bobby, GM and president. So we'll have a better understanding of what maybe their outlook was for this season. But for now, we're all speculating here. And my speculation is that nothing really is going to happen. But Nick Nurse, could easily see him go. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Like this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe to Amateur Hour TV for more videos like this. And around my head right now was another video you may enjoy from this channel. There's also my other 3 channels. My main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, for Raptors content. The Clips channel for clips from my live streams on my main channel. And my betting channel for educational sports betting content about the NBA. Check them out. See you again next time.